All right, so today we're going to deep dive into this book I just read, The Rosie Project.
Oh,
Have
yeah.
you heard of this one?
I have. I've heard the name.
It is so good.
Really?
Like, it's funny, it's smart,
Yeah.
it's just a really enjoyable read.
Huh.
And it's about this genetics professor named Don Tillman.
Okay.
And he decides he wants to find a wife.
Right.
But he's not exactly the most socially adept person.
I see.
So he comes up with this idea to create a questionnaire.
What?
Yeah, to find the perfect partner.
A questionnaire like to find a wife.
A wife, yes.
Wow.
Very scientific approach.
Very scientific indeed.
But of course, things don't exactly go according to plan.
Of course not. This is a book we're talking about.
Right, exactly.
There's got to be some drama.
And that's where all the fun comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued already.
So Don is this very logical guy, right? Like everything has to be just so.
Okay.
And there's this one scene that just cracked me up.
What is it?
He asks this woman out to dinner, like a really nice restaurant.
Okay, fancy.
Yeah, and she says to him, "Are you kidding?"
Oh, no.
And he is completely baffled. Like, he genuinely doesn't understand why she would think it's a joke.
Oh, that's hilarious and kind of sad at the same time.
Right.
It's like he just misses those social cues.
Totally. And that's a big part of his character. And it kind of comes up later in the book, too. Like, the idea of Asperger's is mentioned.
Oh, interesting.
But it's not like a label or anything. It's just like part of who he is.
I see.
And it's handled really well, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to this questionnaire.
Yeah.
What kind of woman is Don even looking for with this thing?
Well, he's got like this whole list of criteria, you know? No smoking, punctuality is a must for someone who appreciates his like super organized lifestyle.
Sounds pretty rigid.
Yeah, a little bit, but then he meets Rosie.
Rosie.
Yeah, and she is like the complete opposite of everything on his list.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah, she's free-spirited, kind of messy, definitely doesn't live by a schedule.
So how do they even end up meeting?
Well, Don has this thing for making lobster dinners every week.
Lobster dinners every week.
Every week.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a creature of habit.
Okay.
And one week, Rosie just kind of shows up.
What?
Yeah, and they end up having this amazing meal together on his balcony.
Okay, a balcony lobster dinner.
You know, right?
That sounds both romantic and a little chaotic.
You got it.
I'm getting a good sense of this book now.
It's a good one.
So what happens next?
Well, Dawn starts to get swept up in Rosie's world.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, and she's got this whole other thing going on. Like what? She's on a quest to find her biological father.
Wait a minute. So we've got a genetics professor, a free-spirited woman,
Yeah.
and a search for a long-lost dad.
It's a lot, I know.
This is getting good.
Buckle up.
How does Don even handle that kind of challenge?
Well, with his unique approach, of course.
Okay.
He even ends up going undercover as a bartender at a medical school reunion to collect DNA samples for Rosie.
A bartender.
A bartender.
I have to read this book. Undercover bartender collecting DNA samples. That is amazing.
It's a scene you won't forget.
I bet.
It's got humor. It's got awkwardness. It's got Don trying to blend in while secretly being a genetics mastermind.
I'm sold.
I knew you would be. Don as a bartender, it's just like peak the Rosie Project, you know?
I can totally see it.
It just perfectly captures the whole vibe of the book.
So he's mixing drinks.
Yeah.
He's secretly collecting DNA.
Uh-huh.
Is he still trying to stick to his crazy schedule?
Oh, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
he's got his little notebook out. He's trying to time everything perfectly.
Oh, Don.
But of course, Rosie's there throwing wrenches into his plans.
I bet she is.
She's just this whirlwind of spontaneity.
You know, it really makes you think about their relationship.
Yeah,
Like, is Rosie just chaos in Don's perfectly ordered world?
that's a good question.
Or is she something more?
Well, that's kind of the heart of the book, isn't it?
Hmm.
Rosie really challenges Don's way of thinking
In what way?
about everything, not just relationships. Yeah, she pushes him to be more spontaneous, try new things, loosen up a bit.
So are they actually good for each other?
Well, you'll have to read and find out.
Come on, give me a little something.
Okay, so Rosie isn't the only woman who comes into Don's life.
Oh, there's another woman.
Her name is Bianca.
Bianca.
Yeah, and she is everything on Don's questionnaire.
Really?
Beautiful, accomplished, loves ballroom dancing.
Wait, Don can dance?
He takes lessons, remember, he's all about self-improvement.
That's right, I forgot about that.
But here's the thing, even though Bianca is perfect on paper,
Yeah.
the connection with Rosie just isn't there.
Wow, so it's like the book is saying that logic can only take you so far in love.
Exactly, you can't just quantify these things.
So what happens with Bianca? Does he try to make it work?
Let's just say his attempts at wooing her don't go so smoothly.
I can only imagine.
Don and social grace is not always a winning combination.
Poor Don.
But it makes for some great comedy.
You know, we haven't really touched on the Asperger's thing. It's got hinted at throughout the book, but never explicitly stated.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach.
It is. I like how they don't label him,
Mm-hmm.
but they still explore the challenges he faces with social interaction.
It's done really well, I think, with sensitivity and humor.
I think this book sounds amazing.
You should definitely read it.
It seems like it's about so much more than just finding a wife.
Oh, for sure. It's about self-discovery, challenging norms.
And lobster.
And lobster, of course.
This is going straight to the top of my reading list.
Mm.
I'm really curious about how the book balances the humor with the more serious stuff, you know,
Yeah.
like Don's struggles.
It's done really well, I think. It's
Yeah.
like you're laughing one minute and then the next you're like, oh, wow, that's actually kind of deep.
Yeah, like you really feel for him.
Right, exactly.
I love books that can do that.
Me too.
So we've talked a lot about Don, but what about Rosie?
Oh, yeah, Rosie.
How does she challenge his worldview?
Well, she's not afraid to call him out on his, rigid thinking. She encourages him to be more spontaneous, to try new things.
I like her already.
She's great. And you know what's interesting?
Right.
Don helps Rosie, too.
Really?
Well, he helps her think more strategically about her goals.
Okay.
He helps her find some structure in her life.
So they both kind of balance each other out.
Yeah, it's like a true partnership.
I love that.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the best relationships are the ones that challenge us to grow.
So for our listeners who haven't read this book yet,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say is the biggest takeaway?
Well, you'll definitely laugh a lot,
Good.
but you'll also get this really unique perspective on love and relationships.
And what it means to connect with someone.
Exactly.
I'm adding this to my reading list right now.
You should.
It sounds fantastic.
It is.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the Rosie Project.
Great book.
We hope you enjoyed it and maybe learned a thing or two about love and lobster.
Yes, definitely lobster.
Until next time, happy reading, everyone.